Look, I'm on board with the poop penis wearing a top hat. Okay? I'm not proud. I'm not ashamed. Honestly, I'm bewildered more than anything. Yeah, one of the babies had 35 legs and there were saw blades on the end. Hello. I'm very excited today because I had two different authors kind enough to send me an ARC of their new books. Now, if you're not in the know, and I wasn't until it's funny, I had never heard of an ARC before I joined Instagram, and then it's one of those things like it just seemed like it was everywhere after I first saw it. An ARC is an advanced reader's copy. So that is when an author sends a reviewer a copy of their book before it's made available to the public for purchase. So I have two different ARCs that I want to review with you today. And one of those authors was kind enough to send me some of their previous work as well. Oh, thanks. Oh, hell yeah. Okay, so first up we have Twist of Cain by Michael J. Stiehl. Now, Twist of Cain will be available for purchase on April 7th. Now, this story is from the perspective of a teenage boy named Chris. Now, when he was a child, Chris was best friends with another kid named Donnie. As is often the case, something happened and they kind of stopped being friends. Donnie had a tendency to be unpredictable and impulsive to the point that it was scary. There's a specific incident where things escalate to the point where Chris decides he just really doesn't want to hang around with Donnie anymore. Some time passes and Donnie ends up taking his own life. Despite the fact that they weren't close friends anymore, Chris still cared about Donnie, and his death has just left him reeling. Donnie was known for making really awesome mixed tapes of metal music. I should mention this takes place in like the 80s, but that was Donnie's thing, to the point that he started being able to sell them to other kids at school and stuff because they were that good. People would pay for them. And shortly after his death, a rumor starts that he made one final mixed tape and that it is somehow related to his death. As is often the case when somebody dies, especially teenagers, but even adults, anybody who is immature might feel so inclined as to try to attach themselves to that person for the sake of attention, might pretend like they were closer than they were, just desperate for attention in one way or another. So Chris initially just thinks that that's all it is, that it's just a bunch of hoopla. But it turns out not only is the tape real, but it actually has a terrifying effect on the people who listen to it. I guess I'll leave the plot there. Now, I enjoyed this so much. This has such a nice blend of the coming of age story, the friendship dynamics. Our main character, Chris, is complex. He has qualities that, even though they're understandable, they are inherent flaws. He has the teenage angst, that arrogance that comes from youth, and he's really struggling with his feelings of regret and remorse over how their friendship ended and now Donnie's dead. But he's also struggling to come to terms with who Donnie really was, as opposed to the lens that he saw him through while they were friends. That internal struggle of, well, I abandoned him and now he's not here anymore, versus the very legitimate reasons he had for walking away from that relationship. It's something that you see in media, whether it's celebrities or real people. You see a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. One person is having some sort of mental health crisis, or maybe a struggle with addiction or anger issues or something. One person is struggling. Their romantic partner or their friend might be trying to support them through their struggle, but the person just doesn't want to be helped And at some point, the other person needs to walk away for their own sake, for their own safety, for their own mental health, that they cannot allow themselves to be dragged down with that person. And then if some sort of tragedy does strike, if they end their life or if they overdose or something happens, then the guilt that that person feels for walking away, even though the reality is if they hadn't, it may have very well ended up the same way, and it could have been them as well. The survivor's guilt, the shame, the uncertainty of if there was something they possibly could have done to help. And all of that's just internal. That's not even to mention the way that sometimes other people will support that narrative and be like, yeah, you abandoned them at their lowest point. It's just something that I think people can be very judgmental about. You can only do so much. You can't force somebody to be willing to accept help. I think it's the sort of thing that's very complex, and it's very difficult, even for adults, to contend with these sorts of questions. And so having this story where it's a teenage boy trying to cope and analyze and understand all the complexity of all these emotions that he's struggling with. It's a very touching story, but it does also have genuinely disturbing elements to it. It definitely has some real darkness to it as well. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, or you're just familiar with these books, I think that this is kind of a blend between My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix and Music to Sacrifice Virgins 2 by Christopher Triana. This isn't a splatterpunk book, so it's not as extreme as Music to Sacrifice Virgins 2. It's records instead of mixed tapes, but it is records that have a very evil effect on the people who listen to it. And so this has that sort of same darkness, the same kind of concept behind it, but it has that sort of touching coming of age angle, similar to My Best Friend's Exorcism, only it's boys. And yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I would really recommend it to anybody who kind of likes coming of age horror join combos. The way that the kids want to hear the mixed tape isn't just about attention. It's that sort of morbid curiosity and lack of respect for the dead. Because the impression isn't so much that Donnie intentionally left this tape because he wants people to listen to it. It's implied that somebody got a hold of it and is now prepared to play it for other people throughout the school. And so people who never really gave a shit about Donnie want to hear the tape, though, just wanting to extort it because it makes you feel, not because of care for that person, but because you like the attention that you're getting because you have this interesting morbid thing. And it's something where it's human, but it's still fucking annoying. Like, I really enjoy horror stories that have the coming of age element to it, and the subject of friendships and all the complexities that come, the teenage angst, and the way the characters were written were so believable. So I don't know if the author, Michael Stiehl will see this or not, but if you do, then thank you again for sending me an arc of it to review. I appreciate it very much. And again, for people who are interested, this will be available on April 7th of this year, 2026. Okay, now next up, we're changing the tone. That was a little bit more horror-ish, but now we're getting into some Bizarro nonsense. Okay, I couldn't start with the silly and try to get serious. I had to start serious and then go to the silly, you understand? Okay, so the arc that I received from this author is called The Piss, by Matthew Gleason. This has two separate release dates. There is the initial release for this book on godless.com. That is on March 3rd. And then it will be available through Amazon on April 1st. Now, I thought this was very cool because when you start the piss, you notice that the foreword is by, if you know, Mr. Jerry Blaze, author of which I reviewed previously on this channel, and I was a big fan of it. So fucking good for you, Matthew, getting a forward by Jerry Blaze. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Now, now what is this about? Any guesses? So we have this dude named Randy, and when Randy was a child, he stayed for a while with his grandpappy. And his grandpappy stayed in a cabin, and he enjoyed collecting jars of his piss. And so this kid, at the time, Randy, that was normal for him to walk around this cabin and just see jars of piss everywhere. And it was normal for everything to smell like his grandpappy's piss. That was just normal life for him. Now, his grandpappy eventually croaked. He goes through a period of time where he's homeless and he's struggling, but eventually he turns it around. He has a partner, trans boyfriend John, and their cat Rasputin, and they're all vibing together. But here's the thing. Randy has all these things coming together to help him have a normal life, but he just can't quite let go of the piss jars. It's something that kind of haunts/taunts him. He thinks about it. He dreams about it. He has a desire to drink the piss. And so one day, jars of, specifically his grandpappy's dead. Done bet. But jars of piss start showing up on his front porch, and he's like, I know this piss. I know these jars of piss. And I know where this came from. So he tries to drink them in secret, but eventually his boyfriend John catches him. And so there is some awkwardness. Eventually, Randy gets the memo that he needs to go back to his grandpappy's cabin. He does. And the things that he finds there. Okay? I don't want to give spoilers. Oh, I mean, like I do. I very much. Actually, because I don't think you understand. How could you possibly? Look, I just don't have it in me to not tell you what's there. And I know that maybe I shouldn't. But I'm too weak. I'm not strong enough to keep this to myself. And so I hope that this compels you to be like, what the fuck? I need to learn more. Okay, but I'm gonna give a smidge. Now here's the thing. There is a supernatural element. Why am I questioning this? There's a poop penis. Do not misunderstand. It is not poop in the shape of a penis. No, because that would imply that it's not a real penis, that it is just poop in the shape of a penis. That's not what this is. This is a penis. It is. That is what it is. And it's big. But it is made out of poop. Okay? Not the other way around. And also, he's wearing a top hat. You should read it. You should read it. He goes to the cabin. There is that and other things as well. And you're like, well, how did we get here? Wouldn't you like to know? Read it. Read it and find out. It's available on March. Anyway, this is very gross and very funny. There are some, it's the humor in this is not just regarding the randomness, the absurdity of it, although I do appreciate that. But there's just genuine sorry. There's a sentence where, because Randy, he's come to expect these deliveries of Grandpappy's piss like every week or something for a while, and it's something that before he goes back to the cabin, and it becomes something that he looks forward to. And there's this line, "Piss day was everything to me." There's so much humor, including but also going beyond just the absurdity of it, the creativity, the visual, and just the nonsensical nature of everything. Just genuinely very funny. But I also think that it kind of touches on something that I think is interesting about how our experiences as children can leave a lifelong imprint on us. Imagine being a kid and either living in a place like that or visiting a place like that, how that kind of experience of the piss jars, even if it didn't lead to a fetish, it might possibly cause you to go the extreme the other way and become a clean freak, or yeah, like maybe have some sort of sexual fetish for it or whatever, but just something that's so out there and so strange, and how those sorts of experiences as children really do show up later in life. I don't know, it just sort of got me thinking about that and about how many of our eccentricities as adults have to do with those peculiar early childhood experiences. Look, if you are a fan of Bizarro and you like the gross and absurd, weird, silly nonsense, would strongly recommend this. This was very, very fun to read. Now, also included in this was a bonus story called House of Mouths. This is about a man named Raphael who, from the time he is a young child, he lives in a house that has two gigantic mouths in it. There's a smiling mouth and there's a frowny mouth. And they're both wearing bright red lipstick, like the mouth from Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you're familiar with sci-fi and you're familiar with Stargates, I hope you are, these are two Stargate-ass motherfuckers. Okay, now the thing is, the house didn't come first. Okay, it's not like the house was there and then these mouths just appeared out of nowhere. The mouths were just kind of floating in a field, and they were just there, and the house was built around the mouths, and one of the mouths spits up cake and the other one spits up pudding, and it's not for you though. You can't have it. It's for the other mouth. These people living in the house basically just become the mouths, bitch, transporting the pudding and the cake back and forth, because the one that spits out the cake needs to eat the pudding, and it's just this back and forth. Why? Who's to say? Raphael grows up in this house and eventually he's grown and he's living there alone. And it is at that point where the mouths change the rules of the game and shit escalates and things happen. Also, the absurdity, the nonsense, this one, look, I don't know how to explain where the line is, but for my personal preference, I love absurdity, I love Bizarro. I enjoy randomness as a way of fueling humor. Okay? But there's a line, and there is a point when you're using randomness as the source of humor where it becomes too much and it becomes less funny each time. I don't know how to explain where the line is. I just know that there is one, and that sometimes I'll be really enjoying a story, but then the randomness just does it a few too many times, and it just sort of causes me to enjoy it a little bit less. Where's the threshold? I don't know. This one worried me for a second. It worried me for a second because I thought we were approaching the line of too much randomness. There was a specific line, something about a demented, was it a vulture? A demented vulture or what was it? Vulture with borderline personality disorder? What was it? It was something with a vulture. I'm on board with the two big mouths and things related to the two big mouths. One's cake, one's pudding. Okay. I'm on board. I'm going along with that. But then we started to broach these little random tidbits. But then thankfully Matthew Gleason did not pursue those things further, so I was able to let them go. Because at some point, I would have been a little bit overwhelmed. I like my absurdity and I like my nonsense, but I do want to have something to hang on to. Some of those things that they briefly mentioned didn't push it too far. So you scared me. You made me nervous. But we were good. And so I enjoyed that story as well. The way that they chose to escalate the events. It made a lot of sense in a story that didn't make much sense. But yeah, so that is the piss. Again, available on godless.com on March 3rd, available through Amazon on April 1st. Now, Matthew Gleason was kind enough to also send me some of their other stories, and these are not ARCs though. These are already currently available for you to consume. Okay, so we have Cannibal Sluts 4. And no, there is no 1 through 3. This is the only book in the series. Within the story, Cannibal Sluts is a film franchise. Matthew Gleason gives a brief summary of the events of the first 3 movies. I guess they just didn't want to write those stories. They just wanted to jump to the 4th installment. We know going into the 4th one that our main character, Grace, is the sole survivor from Cannibal Sluts 3. Cannibal Sluts, it's kind of like a zombie, only they're slutty. You know, just the easiest way to think of them is like a slutty zombie, basically. It's the same sort of vibe. So imagine being attacked by the Cannibal Sluts, you know. So her entire family has been killed by an onslaught of Cannibal Sluts. At this point, she's 17 years old. But imagine she's like an adult playing a teenager. The only living relative she has is her aunt. Now, her aunt is a very important doctor, scientist lady, and she works on Slut Island, where she is trying to figure out how to stop these cannibal sluts. And so, unfortunately for Grace, because she needs to go live with her aunt as her sole living relative, she's on a boat and she's headed towards Slut Island, you know, and she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't even know her aunt. And yeah, her aunt, it's like a lab where they have the cannibal sluts, using them as test subjects and trying to figure them out and all that stuff. You come to find if you can't beat them, join them. Not the cannibal part, but that perhaps the cannibal sluts won't cannibalize you if they believe you to be a fellow slut. There's also a cat, named something. Ocean Man? I have to confess, I am of the correct age bracket for this, but I did not watch SpongeBob SquarePants growing up. It just, at the time, was not my cup of tea. So apparently this is some sort of SpongeBob reference that I do not get. I feel like I've given you a very vague thing, but like honestly, that's pretty much all I can say without giving everything away. It's not a super long story. But what I will say, Matthew Gleason, if you are watching this, I got a bone to pick with you. Now, the ending of this, the last sentence of this, I will spoil the last sentence because it doesn't even fucking matter. This is the last sentence. And then it says the end with a question mark. Matthew Gleason, if you can't even finish the first one, the audacity of you to imply that there might be more in the future. Are you good? I'm not mad about it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. The concept of this is really funny. Obviously, the jarring language of it. They could have done more with. They could have written the Cannibal Sluts 1 through 3. I would say overall, as you would expect perhaps based off of the way that it ended, just a little bit less fleshed out than like the piss. Any sort of bizarro, absurd thing, you're not necessarily expecting everything to be perfectly wrapped up and all that stuff. It's just meant to be like this jolt of humor and fun and silliness. But overall, I think because it is less fleshed out, it's less memorable overall compared to something like The Piss, which just that just has a little bit more. You know, there just wasn't. It's sort of that same thing of there's a concept, but there isn't that much of a. Well, there was a story. Matthew just didn't feel like sharing it with us. But there's also smut in this. So if you enjoy just like weird, absurd stuff, but you like it to be slutty, as you might expect, Cannibal Sluts 4 is the right place to look for such a thing. And the last book that Matthew Gleason sent me is called Eat Cat Food, and it is a collection of stories. I'm going to talk about 2 of these stories, and it's going to kind of give you a bit of an idea of the sort of range that's in this collection. One of the stories is called Cruel Numbers. This is about a man who everything that happens to him, everything in his life is just a statistical improbability. The type of person that gets struck by lightning repeatedly, wins the lottery, and then something immediately happens and all of his winnings go down the drain. This is just kind of out there. It feels a little bit more existential, the kind of vibe of it. And that's why I kind of wanted to mention it, because there is a range here. From what I can tell, they lean weird, but not necessarily that kind of silliness. Like this had a more serious tone to it comparatively. All the things that could happen. When you think about technically it's possible, but it is just so brazenly, statistically unlikely that it just never would. Just the chances are literally like 0 in a zillion. Like it's just not going to happen. But if you had somebody who was the patron of statistical improbability, like imagine the crapshoot that could arise, you know? There's a sentence in here. Life is just random letters we try to make sense out of. And it's kind of referencing a monkey on a typewriter, given enough time, eventually he'd read Shakespeare. You know, like that it's statistically highly improbable, but technically possible. So I enjoyed this, more thoughtful side of our author. And then back to some of the absurd, bizarre nonsense. We have a story called A Chaos of Crabs, which was surprisingly touching. This is about a woman. She is a woman, but she's also a chimpanzee. And when I say that, I mean mentally, emotionally, inside a woman. But she's in the body of a chimpanzee. Her name is Peaches. And she lives in a world where babies are not particularly valuable because women don't have to give birth to them. What was it? It was something where they like plant them and they grow in like dirt. And then it's just like less of an ordeal to have babies, so they are considered more disposable. And so in this, they have baby fights. Have you ever seen, back in the day, they used to have a show, maybe it still exists, I don't know. I'm sure it does. It's like a competition where people will build robots, and then the robots will be like, oh, this one has like a little stabby knife or something, and then like this one can like lift up a hammer and smash things or whatever, and people build their little robots and then they battle the robots in the Colosseum. So this is sort of like that, only it's their babies, and they upgrade their babies to have like the stabby knife or to have like the big hammer. Like you can modify your baby to be good at fighting and to have fire breath or laser eyes or whatever. You can pay if you have the money. You can pay to upgrade your baby to make them as dangerous as possible, and then send them into the ring to fight other babies. And if they win, then you get money. And so Peaches, the woman slash chimpanzee, does that. She does it all the time because, again, she doesn't have to give birth to these babies. It's just less of an ordeal. She's kind of made a habit out of it, honestly. And so she's kind of at this point where she's like down on her luck for reasons, and she's putting it all on this last baby. She's investing every last penny she has on upgrading this baby as much as possible because she is determined for this baby to win this final bout. This story is if you can just let go of the fact that they're babies, because you think about it too much and you're going to be like, well, that's fucked up. But just don't think about it too much. Just don't get emotional. Don't think about it too hard. Just monster babies, laser eyes. Don't allow yourself to get emotionally attached to the hypothetical infants, and you will be fine. This is very funny. This is very silly. I enjoyed this story a lot. The bigger, the weirder, the more out there, as long as we stay somewhat centered on that premise. You come up with a ridiculous premise, and you can have like your little random elements and everything. But as long as we just don't go too far off the rails where I can't even keep up, I'm on board. I'm happy. Oh, and there's crab overlords. I forgot. It's called a chaos of crabs because the overlords in the story are crabs. Look, I know this. It's a fine line. Now, the line has not been crossed. It's been approached. Matthew said at the beginning of one of the stories that, shout out to Carlton Mellick III, King of Bizarro, and that they learned from Carlton Mellick and other authors as well. That's just, there's no limit. You can do whatever you want. Like, there really are no rules. So I think for me, the piss I enjoyed the most, I really enjoyed the stories out of Eat Cat Food. I thought that the premise of Cannibal Sluts was funny, but I would have personally, even though I was amused by the transparency of the end, doesn't change the fact that it is overall less wrapped up and then will probably not stick with me as much as some of the other things. Okay, so those are all the stories that I read. Depending on what kind of mood you're in, if you want something that's going to pull on your heartstrings and make you feel emotionally invested, then absolutely Twist of Cain, Michael Stiehl, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. If you just want some fucking nonsense in your life is too serious, you need something ridiculous to just laugh at and have a good time, than any of these stories by Matthew Gleason, but I'm sure that they would appreciate if you went with the piss to start. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you the next time around. Bye! Oh, yeah, he sucks the piss out of the carpet. I could have done without that part. That was...